Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 14th of December 2021. These are the stories that we will be talking about during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the United States of America, whose Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has touted a US strategy to deepen its Asian treaty alliances. He wants to boost defense and intelligence work with partners in an Indo-Pacific region increasingly concerned with China's aggressive actions. This he said during a visit to Indonesia, and he of course pointed out towards other countries as well that he will be visiting after this visit to Indonesia as well. But what does this new alignment sign up for? Does it show a certain inclination of the US towards other parties? Does it show an inclination of the US to further broaden its alliance against its so-called rivalry with China? This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, will concern the unwarranted, gratuitous and provocative comments that have been made by the Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh that level unfounded allegations in the context of terrorism and hurling threats against Pakistan. This is what has been said by the Foreign Office, and of course he had claimed that the 1971 war was a reminder that India's partition on religious lines was a historic mistake. This is going to be our second story. Our third story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns remittances sent by overseas Pakistanis that have fallen 6.6%, nevertheless have grown by almost 10% in the first 5 months of the current fiscal year. These are very important because they of course contribute to the economy of Pakistan. Our next story, ladies and gentlemen, will be about the sports goods industry of Pakistan that has outperformed as the football exports have crossed $50 million in the first 4 months of the current fiscal year. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about Anwar Khokhar from Larkana, known fondly as Chacha, and his story to reunite lost children with their parents. He has already reunited around 18,000 children, and currently also a couple of children have been adopted by him, and some ladies still stay with him. Around 900 girls have also been relocated with their families and have reconciled with their parents due to his efforts. Let's come to our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns US-Pakistan, US-China, US regional alliances. Now, Anthony Blinken is visiting different countries, and he was in Indonesia where he talked about the Asian treaty alliances to boost defense and intelligence work with partners in an Indo-Pacific region. To talk more about that, to talk about what are the US designs as far as this region is concerned, or overall the world is concerned, we've been joined by Salman Bhittani. He's a foreign affairs expert, and he joins us in the studio. Salman, thank you very much to have joined us. Salman, US, we've got 4 senators in Pakistan, then we have Anthony Blinken, who's visiting different countries. He's is in Indonesia, he'll be going to Thailand and another country after that as well. What does the US want? A, does it want a new alliance to counter the increasing influence of China? B, does it want to dominate the world as the world is now becoming more of a multipolar globe rather than a unipolar world? What is the US intention in your point of view?
I think it's very straightforward. US really want to contain China in the region, because US has lately realized that the long absence from Asia Pacific region as a dominant country, as an economic player, as a political player, has backfired. US has been too much busy in its wars, and the former Trump regime has also kind of turned a blind eye towards the increasing influence of China in the region. You would remember that in 2017 they backed off from a cooperation deal. So now US is on its toes, and it's in every part of the world it is trying to somehow re-establish its influence, the ground that it has lost. That's why you very rapidly see these developments of making Quad and then AUKUS, which is like they are empowering Australia with the nuclear submarines, which is a very aggressive step in international politics. And now Blinken's visit to Asia Pacific region, starting it from Indonesia, it is an attempt to somehow contain that flow of influence of China and somehow bring an alternative structure to these countries so that it can regain its lost space. Because in the 21st century, beyond other major international events, the international political scenario has developed in a way that China is increasing its influence in its neighborhood, particularly in Asia Pacific, which has become the flashpoint of global politics. It used to be Europe in some days, but now that is the next ground to compete in various aspects. And the road that China has taken is very significant in the sense that these areas, these countries, they were economically deprived, and there were some fundamental structural problems of market, of trade dynamics, of connectivity, of linkages, and China has come up with the model for them that they could become a trade hub, they could connect to the global economy. China has given them that space. China has poured in a lot of FDI, a lot of money into these markets, and it has galvanized the economies of these countries. So I think personally, US is very late to catch the boat.
Why is the US late in your point of view? And secondly, you talked about economy. That is one of the major factors that prompts the US to be aggressive as far as its new alliances is concerned. Also, there's this issue of the South China Sea that both the US and China contest as well. What is going to happen in the coming years? Let's talk about economy. You kind of made a certain point. What about the political issues or issues of terrain such as South China Sea?
I think South China Sea would become a bone of contention in the near future, because that is the point where US is trying to make some space for itself, and it is standing behind all those countries who have claims over South China Sea, while at the same time China does not accept any claim, and it kind of aggressively sets its tone while it talks about South China Sea. It very aggressively positions its forces, its naval forces when it comes to South China Sea. Otherwise, we haven't seen any kind of military aggression from China as of now. But when it comes to South China Sea and when it comes to anything in Indo-Pacific, China responds very aggressively in very straightforward terms. We have seen Chinese president talking in very straightforward terms. We have seen the Chinese foreign ministry when it refers to these issues. The tone is like very harsh. So the future is complicated in a way that US as a state is an aggressive state. US has always been an aggressive power. Its military presence across the globe represents its posture, and it will follow that posture. It will not follow any other different course of engagement, particularly when it comes to waterways and water channels and naval superiority. And that's why we see that it is empowering these non-nuclear weapon states with the nuclear submarines, which is a very complicated case of proliferation as well at the same point.
But at the same time, when you talk of course, the AUKUS deal and other deals which the US has initiated with countries, let's talk also of Blinken when he also said while visiting Indonesia that the US will strengthen ties with treaty allies such as Japan, South Korea, Thailand and the Philippines, and boost their defense and intelligence cooperation with them. Now, is this a new world order in the making?
No, I think US is trying very hard to come up with this notion of alliance. While if you see, if we define alliance, by definition, you can say Japan is a very close ally of US, but vis-a-vis other countries, the term is like a little exaggerated. Alliance comprises of many different cooperations, like South Korea is a strong ally. But the other countries, I think the business clout of Chinese state and Chinese diaspora in those countries, their trade linkages with China, they are far beyond the comprehension of what US is now bringing to the table. Intelligence sharing for what? Like, yes, US has an edge in technology which it can offer to these countries, and it might somehow outbalance the interest that China brings. But I think that equation is very difficult to maintain at this moment of time, because China is bringing in a lot of opportunities. While for that region, US is not part of the region, US is not in the region. It would be very difficult for US to bring something to the table that convinces all these other countries, apart from these few which I mentioned, to be called as allies in the first place.
Now let's also talk about the virtual conference on democracy that the US called on, in which Pakistan was called, but of course Pakistan declined due to its reasons. But nevertheless, it did not call China in it, but it called other countries. Also Russia was not called in it. So what I mean to understand or comprehend from this is again, is US putting countries on its side and putting and not inviting or not concentrating itself on countries that are in the so-called Chinese camp?
US is actually flagging its own model that has been there for these decades when US kind of become a superpower after the fall of Soviet Union. So democracy and free trade and all these liberal economic ideas, it is kind of bringing them again to the limelight, and it is kind of telling the world and all these countries which are slowly and gradually drifting away from all these ideals that US model is based on and US superiority in global politics is based on. It is somehow trying to re-galvanize all these concepts, and on the sidelines it is also bringing some positive energies and some positive opportunities that are linked as said by US with these ideologies, with these political systems. So that's why US is trying to bring up that notion of liberal democracy, that notion of free trade and economy, and that's why it also mentions human rights, and it also mentions the system of plurality where they are trying to bank on these moralistic values of politics. Time will tell that whether these moralistic notions of politics work anymore or not, because at the end of the day, it's the market. Market drives the state policies.
It's economy that will determine the future of the strength of one of these two countries, China or the US, or maybe both of them. Also, UN's Secretary General Antonio Guterres had warned of a potential new Cold War way back in September. I mean, that's not that far away. Nevertheless, a lot of analysts say that the Cold War has already begun, the Cold War version 2 between China and the United States of America. Do you feel the US and China could repair this dysfunctional relationship?
I don't think so at this moment of time. This is possible in near future, because the course of action that both have adopted, it is suggesting something like Cold War, not exactly as a Cold War, but you know, a competition is in the offing, and that competition is transforming into something which is aggressive. The sanctions, the kind of trade tariff barriers that previous regime started to put on China, and you see another facet to this whole entanglement is this AI war, this war of data sharing and data protecting. Because if you see in the Blinken visit as well, one of the offer to these South Asian, Asia Pacific countries is that we will give you an internet which will be protected. Your data will be protected. So there is this new facet as well. And then
you remember the war with Huawei as well in the past.
Yeah, that's a glaring example of this conflict which is in the offing. So the transformation is suggesting that they are not rolling back, and the talks of harmony and the talks of cooperation and the talks of diplomacy, I think they are just cosmetics. They would not work on the ground.
Do you feel countries like Pakistan, Salman, could help bridge some kind of a gap between the US and China? Because this is what our Prime Minister said very recently. He said that Pakistan desires to bridge any gap with the US, between the US and China, instead of joining any particular bloc. Pakistan or any other country, do you feel, could that help?
I think if we talk about Pakistan, yes, I would say yes, because we have this very significant example from history where Pakistan was the one who bridged this gap between US and China, because they were not at good terms. In fact, they didn't had good diplomatic relations, and Richard Nixon's visit and chewing lies, diplomacy with Henry Kissinger, that was brokered by Pakistan. And I don't think so Pakistan was that strong at that. It was not even a nuclear power at that time. Pakistan is way more stronger today. So it is possible, and Pakistan has good offices with China. But functionally speaking, from functionalist perspective, I don't think so US would go for this option, or US would try to bank on Pakistan for this. Pakistan can play a role, but US has changed its structure, its political structures, its policy dynamics. The strategy where it is promoting India as somehow a counterpart to China in the region, and in Indian Ocean it is somehow augmenting its forces and its political stature as well. That would not give much space to US to somehow bring Pakistan in the front seat. But as far as the capability of Pakistan is concerned, I think yes.
The alliances, the maneuvering by the US, the remaking of new friends, or making clear to the world that there are new foes in the world now. Is it not gearing towards more instability in the world, and also more suffering in the world, as was seen during the Cold War between Russia and the US?
From the perspective which you are mentioning, yes, definitely. It is popularly said in our part of the world as well, when two elephants fight, definitely there is a collateral damage. So if that things come into existence, the people will suffer. Some states will suffer because as you see that global powers, at times there is a point where they kind of create these factions. At times we have seen the global powers, how they behave. Like they would put you up in a situation where they would say that either you are with us or against us. So in that case, it is difficult for these states in the middle, who kind of can, if they go to one camp, they have repercussions. They have to weigh the gains and the losses, and if they go to the other camp, that also has repercussions.
The infrastructure war is also going on. We have the BRI from the Chinese side. The US also some time back announced a similar measure. The European Union also announced a kind of a similar measure. Is it not tit for tat in your point of view?
Yeah, it is tit for tat. But again, from a functionalist perspective, BRI has gained a lot. It is more feasible, more viable as of now. If they come up with some sort of a connectivity project, if some sort of a connectivity plan, then independent observers can see. But at this moment of time, on ground, it is BRI. It is the work is like in full swing on BRI, and China has been working on this project for the last decade or so. And you see the development of all these ports, like look at Djibouti, look at ports in Sri Lanka, the development in Bangladesh, the developments in Pakistan. So these developments are going on. Some are in the early stages, some are in the middle stages, and some are in the stages of completion. So anything coming in equation to this project would mean definitely something really big. Otherwise, it would not be able to compete.
All right. I would like to refer you to one quote of Anthony Blinken. This is going to be my last question to you. He said while visiting Indonesia that this was not a contest between a US-centric or China-centric region. Would you take this comment with a pinch of salt?
Yeah, I mean, when you are a diplomat, you have to say things which you don't mean. And at times you mean something which you don't say. So I think it's that kind of a scenario.
All right.
Otherwise, it is a classic case of the anxiety is about either being US-centric or China-centric.
All right. Thank you very much, Salman Bhittani, to have joined us.
Thank you.
And we'll continue to engage you as far as China and, of course, global politics is concerned. But let's really hope that some kind of positivity comes out of all of this tussle between the US and China, and it does not more or less become a multipolar world in which both the sides are trying to pull and push and that will create more disharmony than harmony in the world. Thank you very much, Salman. Let's go to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Rather, it concerns India, and a statement that was made by the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh that levelled unfounded allegations in the context of terrorism and hurling threats against Pakistan. Not the first time, and certainly won't be the last time. More in the following report.
The saffron Indian regime is beset by myriad domestic and global challenges owing to its flawed domestic and foreign policies. In order to divert attention of public from its blunders, Indian government has a history of taking refuge behind baseless conspiracies and propaganda directed at Pakistan. As the Hindutva regime has failed to pacify indigenous resistance movements, Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is brazenly twisting historic facts, peddling factually incorrect, baseless, laughable rhetoric. Foreign Office spokesperson Asim Iftikhar Ahmed said that Pakistan strongly condemns Singh's unwarranted, gratuitous and provocative comments. Debunking Indian nefarious designs, the Foreign Office spokesperson noted that it was Bharatiya Janata Party's special foray to misrepresent history, resort to revisionism and delusional thinking and indulge in false bravado. In order to gauge the rationale behind irresponsible chest-thumping, the upcoming elections in Uttar Pradesh and other states are prompting BJP's aggressive Hindutva jingoism. Pakistan, as a responsible regional actor, has always refrained from brinkmanship despite being fully capable of thwarting any aggressive design against its territory. Indian falsehood is based on fifth-generation warfare which the country has unilaterally waged to sabotage vital interests of Pakistan. The startling revelation of European Union Disinfo Lab exposed concerned Indian efforts to discredit Pakistan by manipulated facts. So, from plane hijacking to Mumbai Pulwama attacks, falsehood remains India's statecraft to distract domestic audience from domestic challenges.
Naeem, Khalid, Lodhi Saab, defense analyst, joins us online. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. How do you see this comment by Rajnath Singh? This is not the first time that he has made such a comment, but this is a continuous spate of comments by different leaders in India. What is India trying to achieve?
If we just look at the ground situation in India, whatever they have done in occupied Kashmir, illegally occupied Kashmir, and the reaction of Kashmiris, whatever they are doing with the minorities in the Indian mainland, whether it be Muslims or Christians or Sikhs or even Dalits, their Hindu brothers, so-called. So I think the extremist Hindutva has completely taken over this regime, each and every member of this regime. And all of them are singing the same, song in a chorus sort of thing, whereas it is all false, baseless, whatever allegations they are leveling against Pakistan. But I think one thing good about all this is that at least he has accepted one crime. He said that we have defeated Pakistan in direct war, and now we will defeat them in war of proxies also, which means that they are perpetrating war of proxies against Pakistan. It should be an eye-opener for those Pakistanis and the world, at large. Those who think that nothing is being done from outside and everything is from our own doing. Of course, there are many things which we may not be doing well, but the external enemies are definitely exploiting whatever fishes are there. So he has actually accepted his crime. And while talking about Bangladesh, he was showing a lot of affiliation and love for Bangladesh. Ask the Bangladeshis, how do they feel about India today? Ask all India's neighbors, what do they feel about this big bully? So I think whatever he was saying was rhetoric, was election gimmick, and against the facts.
All right. Of course, you talk about election gimmick, of political gimmicks. This is something that has been going on because, of course, the elections are also to be held in India, not the main ones, but there are other elections that are to be held. And when it comes to political gimmicking, Pakistan is the favorite subject of the Indian politicians,
Right.
and they continue to level baseless allegations against Pakistan and malign Pakistan one over the other. We have had the dossier also that we presented to the media and to the world as far as India's involvement in Pakistan is concerned, in Balochistan, elsewhere is concerned, through Afghanistan is concerned, and of course all the different disinformation campaigns that it has been leveling online through a hybrid warfare. Do you feel that Pakistan needs to come up strongly as a response to this, or do you feel that we are going on the right path?
I think we are a little passive in our attitude. I've always been saying this. For example, if Indian Defense Minister makes a statement, at least a statement should go back from our Defense Minister also. You've never heard him talking anything about defense or about India. India is injured. I'll just count some of the things which you have also said in your intro. We have Kalboshan with us,
Of course.
Yadev, which is an open thing that what he was doing
And
here,
his
we know it very
revelations.
well, right? And then whatever happened to them with the Chinese skirmishes, whatever happened to them while their Air Force tried to violate our sovereignty, and whatever has happened to them in Afghanistan. So they just keep counting that injury after injury. So naturally, they are angry. Instead of accepting their mistakes, they are trying to commit more mistakes.
But
But
why does
your
Pakistan
main
need, but
question,
Naeem Saab, why does Pakistan need to be the scapegoat every time?
because who else can be there? China cannot be a scapegoat. Other neighbors are too small to really matter. So the only significant country which comes to their mind, and then we have a outstanding issue with them of Kashmir. We have fought wars with them. Other than China, I think Pakistan is the other country which has fought wars with India. So with China, they cannot come up equal. With us, they can talk and all this. And your previous question, I would suggest that yes, I think our stance should be a bit stronger than what it is today.
All right. Now, Naeem Saab, also we've seen all the what has been happening as far as the minorities in India is also concerned. What has happened in Tripura, what happened in Assam, what happened in Haryana, and so on and so forth. The cow vigilantes and Muslims not being treated well, not being allowed to offer their Friday prayers in the right manner. And what is happening also in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. To add that is what is happening to the Christian community within India as
Sure.
well, and to the Sikh community inside of India as well, which has led the Sikh community to claim for the state of Khalistan. Now, isn't India imploding in your own point of view due to its wrong policies, just such as these baseless allegations against Pakistan?
Exactly, and in anticipation, they've already started blaming Pakistan. It is a part of a statement that Pakistan is trying to break India. It means that they have seen the fault lines within India, they have seen India cracking, and instead of putting their things in order, they are trying to again find a scapegoat, and Pakistan, of course, is a very favorite scapegoat for them. More surprising is the reaction of the Western world, America. Those who have, they speak a lot. There are a lot of statements. Once there's any small violation of human rights, they are very quiet about India. I mean, even in this the last conference, which they called so-called the democracy conference, they declared Pakistan as a partial democracy and India as a complete democracy. And all these things which you mentioned, they belie whatever is happening actually in India, and they can't be a democratic country if they treat their minorities like that. So probably we need to also sensitize the world a bit more that what actually is happening there.
Our Foreign Office also in the statement said that the BJP's special forte to misrepresent history, revert to revisionism and delusional thinking and indulge in false bravado is something that the world knows. But why is the world not reacting to it? Why is there nothing happening? I don't see anything more than reports being made or some statements that come out. Why is there no economic sanction on India?
Basically, it is all a matter of interest, and especially economic interest. India is a great market, a billion people, more than a billion people, and their diasporas all over the world, and they do work for the country. I think these are some of the factors, and especially the attitude of America. Many countries they emulate whatever Americans do. So because they are quiet, so entire Europe is quiet. The moment America starts saying something about any country, all their companions they join them. So I think we'll have to wait till the American civil society gets to know all this, and it is our duty to make them know what is happening inside India.
Finally, Naeem Saab, can we somehow persuade the United States of America or the European Union to have a more aggressive stance as far as human rights abuses and these false allegations by India are concerned?
I mean, I think there can be no other persuasion in international affairs other than accommodating or adjusting some of their interests, and most of their interests they cross our interests. So that's the problem. We cannot accommodate them in CPAC. We cannot accommodate. I mean, regarding CPAC, we cannot accommodate them regarding our relations with China, regarding whatever is happening in Afghanistan. So presently, it's a very difficult thing. But you must have noticed one thing: the moment Pakistan has taken a stronger stance regarding things about the bases and now also about not attending the conference, they have started talking to you. They have mellowed down. So Americans are, matter of fact people. If you bow, they will push you more down. If you stand up, then they will talk to you properly, and that is the right way to deal with any country in the world.
All right. Thank you very much, Naeem. Khalid Lodhi Saab, defense analyst, talking to us about Rajnath Singh's comments as far as Pakistan is concerned, and this continued rhetoric that is being propagated by India, that is based on lies, that is based on baseless allegations. Let's hope that better sense prevails. But as we see things go and move on, we don't see that happening in the near future. Anyways, let's go to our last three stories very quickly. The first concerns, the first two of course concern economy. The first is of course the remittances that have risen 10% to $13 billion in 5 months period. Although the remittances by overseas Pakistanis fell by 6.6% on a month-to-month basis in November, but they grew by almost 10% in the first 5 months of the current fiscal year. The State Bank of Pakistan has also said that workers' remittances continued their strong streak of remaining above $2 billion since the year 2020. These remittances have been coming from Saudi Arabia, from the UAE, from other very important countries, and of course it is also being said that we are to receive around $1 billion from the IMF, and will plan to raise 1 to 1.5 billion to the issuance of Sukuk bonds. Let's hope that this trend of remittances continues in the same manner, in the same vein, to make our economy stronger as it is growing stronger compared to other countries. And this is a report that has recently been tweeted as well by Mr. Dawood. Our second last story concerns football exports. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that Pakistan has exported and manufactures a lot of footballs. Now, shipments to overseas markets have risen in the wake of the depreciation of the rupee, and the sports good industry of Pakistan has outperformed, crossing $50 billion exports in the first 4 months of the current fiscal year. The foreign shipments of the footballs have risen 17% to 50.148 million in the period of July to October 2021, compared to 42.78 million in the same period of last year. The world loves playing soccer, and we make the best footballs in the world. So wishing the sports goods industry all the very best to further increase that level of export. And finally, we will end today's segment with a heartening story. From Larkana in Sindh, we will introduce you to a person whose name is Anwar Khokhar, otherwise known as Chacha by everyone. What he does, that he reunites lost children with their families, or reconciles them with their parents as well, those who have run away from their homes. He has so far managed to rekindle around 18,000 children with their parents, and around 9,000 girls have been reconciled with their parents as well. He still continues on his own with the help of donors, but he says that it is a difficult task, but he continues in the same vein. He also helps children. There are certain children that he has adopted as well. There are women that live with him, and that reminds us a lot of Eid Saab and all the countless services that he also rendered for the children and the women and the girls. We wish Anwar Khokhar Saab all the very best, and that is the true essence and the true face of humanity that needs to be projected more and more. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new segments and stories that pertain to you and us, and of course our country, that is Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Stay vaccinated, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.